Sometimes I want it to all come easy. I wish it was easier. I wish I was more talented, stuff like that, and then other times I love gritting my teeth and showing up day in and day out and trying to do my best.
Hey y'all, I'm Ryan Devlin and welcome to the Struggle Climbing Show, where I talk with elite climbers about their struggles and breakthroughs in training, nutrition, tactics, and mental game, and also what they're passionate about beyond the fight with gravity. Thank you so much for joining me today as we chalk up for a chat with Dru Mack. Dru is a master of endurance, perseverance, and psych. He grew up as a climber on the long overhung sandstone roots of the Red River Gorge, which is where I also do most of my climbing. And after pretty much climbing everything that there is there, Dru moved out west to tackle some of the toughest sport climbs in the world. How good is he? Well, in 2021, Dru put down 21 514s, including the insanely hard 14D Life of Villains out in the Hurricane. This guy tries hard. He is so gracious and such a cool person. The official climbing nutrition sponsor of The Struggle is PhysiVantage. It's simply the best stuff in the game when it comes to climbing specific nutrition, you guys. Now, we got Dru Mack on the show today, and he is known for his crazy endurance, so I want to highlight one of my favorite PhysiVantage products, Endurex. Endurex is a powdered sports drink mix containing a blend of all-natural and proven performance-enhancing ingredients like beetroot extract and citrulline malate. You guys, I just add a scoop of Endurex to my water bottle to enhance blood flow to muscles, which provides a boost that is honestly game-changing. Case in point, I just recently sent my toughest endurance proj at the Red. It's this 80-foot 12B pump fest called Mercy the Huff. It just stays on you, and I just know that Endurex gave me the edge that I needed in order to make it to the chains. Endurex is a plant-based product, and it contains no sugar, no caffeine, no artificial colors, and no artificial flavors. It's delicious. Just check it out, along with their other amazing products that will help you level up. Hit that link in your show notes or pop by physivantage.com/struggle15 to get 15% off your order. That's physivantage.com/struggle15. This episode is also sponsored by Athletic Greens. They have over 7,000 five-star reviews and are recommended by pro athletes. You guys, I've been taking AG1 for a while now, and I love it. I got a 4-year-old and a 7-year-old, and they just seem to be bringing home a cold from school pretty much every 2 weeks. And I'm telling you, ever since I started taking AG1 every morning, I have managed to avoid getting dragged down by the bugs that those little monsters of mine are bringing home. And that never used to be the case. I feel healthier than I have ever been, and I really do attribute it to my daily AG routine. I love the taste. It's way cheaper than buying supplements. And it's just like one simple thing that I can do every day to take care of myself. I also think it's really cool that they're a carbon neutral company. Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/struggle. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/struggle to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. The Struggle's carbon neutral thanks to a partnership with the Honnold Foundation, whose mission is to support solar energy for a more equitable world. And what a mission that is. I mean, you guys like nature, right? Awesome. Swing over to honnoldfoundation.org and just check out the work they're doing. It's amazing. Maybe think about setting up a monthly donation like I did. It feels good, and you're doing a good thing in the world. Check it out. Now, just a quick heads up, y'all. Dru touches on mental illness, grief, and loss in our final chapter of the interview in case that's something that could be triggering to you. And lastly, y'all, after my chat with Dru, stick around for a couple minutes to hear my takeaways and learn how you can score some swag by supporting the show. All right, get ready to extend the pump clock on this awesome chat with Dru Mack. Dru Mack, welcome to the Struggle Climbing Show. How are you, man?
I'm great, dude. How are you?
I'm so good. I'm so happy to see you.
Yeah, man. It's a privilege. I love it.
How's life treating you out west?
It's good, man. It's funny that we switched coasts. Now you're in Kentucky and I'm out here on the west side.
Yeah, we totally did, dude.
It's funny. I feel like I love hearing how you're doing on the Red River routes. I get to live vicariously through you a tiny bit. But yeah, I miss home. I miss Kentucky a lot, but I've definitely like loved being here.
Yeah, it just looks so awesome out there, man. So look, I can't wait to dive into all of this with you. Training, nutrition, tactics, mental game, of course, the Red River Gorge. But before we do, let's zoom out and just take a look at struggle. And I'd like to know how you view the concept of struggle as a climber.
It's like the challenge. There's so many difficulties that come with hard red pointing, or just sometimes going climbing, or the trials and tribulations of as a climber, that are a small aspect of like the larger picture of life too. You know, we're all struggling in our own ways. I'm just like looking for the challenge a lot of times. A big part of me moving out here was climbing on different styles and different, rock types, and, climbing on the vertical things, climbing in the caves. I mean, even within the last week, I've done both of those kinds of things. So being able to diversify what I'm doing and challenge myself in different ways is another form of struggle. Sometimes I want it to all come easy. I wish it was easier. I wish I was more talented, stuff like that, and then other times I love gritting my teeth and showing up day in and day out and trying to do my best.
I love that answer. Whether you climb 5'10" and you're trying to break into 5'11", or 5'14", going for 5'15", we are going to have those days where we just welcome the challenge and the struggle, and we're like, fucking bring it on. Yeah. And we're going to have those days where we're like, damn it, why wasn't I just born with stronger tendons,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting. I love cheering for everyone, whether you're climbing 5'14" or 5'10". If you're trying really hard, then the effort is the same. The effort is the same between me and you. We're all trying our best, but it just is showing differently. If I'm climbing on 5'14", I'm giving that same effort that you might be on a 5'12". And it's just the route that you're climbing on is different. And so it's easy to be excited for people and cheer for people when you have that mindset, because you're just like, oh, they're trying their absolute best right now. And so that process continues on just harder and harder routes in people's climbing career, or climbing lifetime. The struggle is pretty similar all the way through, but just what you're climbing is different.
Yeah, that is cool. That's what we're finding in this podcast as we're talking to elite climbers like yourself, that the struggles that we go through are really the same. They're just on a different level. And I dig that, man. And I love how psyched you get for other people climbing their hardest, regardless of what level they're on. That's really cool. I can feel that love from you when we talk, but also on social media. It's really great, man. So let's dive in. Let's get nerdy. Where have you struggled in your training specifically, Dru?
I think for a long time, my struggle was of not really knowing what to do. I felt like I was just like a rock climber. I graduated high school or whatever, and I moved to the Red, and I just lived in my car or tent, and I just rock climbed all the time. So there's very little structure involved with that, so there's no training. It was go out to the crag and, eventually climb the whole cliff, climb all of the routes. Who knows?
Okay, we got to pause for a second, because which is it?
I don't want to start a war right now. In versus out, but routes versus routes, I'm not sure.
Because everyone I've talked to on this podcast, it's 50-50. It's routes and routes. And sometimes in the same conversation,
oh yeah,
they say routes or routes.
Yeah, route is underground. I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't really know.
I'm not sure either.
I don't know.
Okay, well, we digress. This obviously isn't going to get settled here now, route versus route, but I think...
they could do a great poll for that, just a little Q&A and see what people come up with. I wonder if it's a location thing as well.
Honestly, I feel like I started out this podcast in saying routes, and then midway through, after interviewing people, maybe it was Honnold, because he just kept saying routes over and over again. And then I was like, geez, obviously Alex Honnold knows how to say route, but is it route? Should we just spend the rest of this entire episode talking about this? No, I don't think so. Okay, so let's get back to focus, but we will leave this unsettled.
Yeah. Teach their own.
Absolutely. We're all inclusive here in the climbing world. All right, let's get back to where we are here talking about training. So basically you're saying training for you was simply climbing. You weren't doing hangboarding or weightlifting or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I was building skills. I was building, I was sending routes. I was becoming a good climber and building fitness and all of those kinds of things. But I wasn't necessarily thinking bigger picture about my climbing. You know, I wasn't thinking about, 10 years from now, where is my hip mobility and my shoulder, strength going to be? Am I going to be hurt? I wasn't thinking about any of that kind of stuff. And I just think it's really valuable to be healthy and fit. And so I think that's where a lot of training in my mind comes in, is like becoming a more well-rounded athlete, not just a good rock climber, being healthy, having strong shoulders, knees, just kind of stuff like that.
Yeah, totally. So at what point in your career did that lack of intentional training become limiting to your growth as a climber?
I really wanted to climb my first 514, and I spent like a whole season trying Omaha Beach in the Red River Gorge in the Manus Cave. And I got really close. Like, I gave really good effort. But I was definitely like missing some key pieces. And I tried that route one in the fall of forever ago now. And I didn't do it. I trained all winter. I like climbed in the gym and spent a lot of focused time on lock off strength and core and some finger strength, and just like spending more time thinking about what my goals were and basing, what I was doing in the gym off of like how I wanted to be better. And that's kind of guided me a lot to this day. And I have like a lot of great mentors and people to ask questions to that have like helped me through that or learn more and more.
So on Omaha specifically, was there a limit move or section? You said you went into the gym, you worked on some lock off and that kind of thing. Were you training essentially some deficiencies or some specific moves so that you could come back and try to work through sections that were stopping you before?
Less like working through moves and more just like working on being, like I said, more well-rounded. I mean, I think that lock-off training was so critical, especially in the Red River Gorge, where, if you can like grab the next hold really well, then you grab the next hold well. And I kind of talk about that as taking care, like doing everything well, then you end up climbing a whole lot better. So I just, I spent a lot of time bouldering too, that winter, like in the gym, with my friend Lee, who's I'll talk about a ton. He's like my mentor and, just a big force in my life. And we just kind of worked through a lot of my weaknesses. And, I came out the next spring and did the route really quick.
Yeah, how cool is that to go away, do some really focused training, and then come down and see the immediate effects of it?
It tends to happen though, I think it's good to check in on hard routes and then come back, and I just did it. I said routes and routes within like two sentences of each other. Anyway, I think it's really great to check in on a route and then come back to it later and see how it feels then.
Can you give us a little peek into what your training looks like now?
Yeah, I worked with a coach a little bit this past year. Her name's Taylor, and she has Tangent Climbing, which I think is a really cool company. I started doing stuff like deadlifting and some more weightlifting, just like some bench press and some overhead press and squatting, or just like little simple things that I've never really done before. A lot of shoulder work, which is just like lying on a bench and doing eyes wide and T's and stuff, lying on the floor and doing like, snow angels kind of things, little handstands, a lot of stuff that just makes me look silly. And I'm sure people are like, that guy climbs hard. He looks like he's just moving 5-pound weights around. Like, what is he doing up there? But yeah, I climb a lot. And then I have periods where, maybe I'm route setting a little bit more at the gym, or maybe I want to train a little bit more. I think having a little bit of bouldering time is really critical for me. Whether that's one day on the moon board or setting and forerunning boulders, or, just having a power session.
Yeah. And so now that you've brought more of that focused training into your world, you still climb a ton. Like, it seems like you are out there on the rock doing these really long climbs, pretty often. So where does rest come in? Like, how has that concept maybe evolved for you over the years?
I think rest is super, super important if you're trying to perform hard. I'll climb 2 on 1 off pretty regularly, and then I will train. I'll go to the gym on that second day. So before rest, I'll go to the gym and do like some of my weightlifting or some of my just stretching. I try to do a bit every day, but I do some of that bigger, heavier stuff when I have a rest day the next day.
So is a rest day truly then a rest day for you, or are you doing something active or a little bit lower impact or just something that's off the fingers?
To me, both. Like, I really love full rest days where I don't get out of bed and, and watch Netflix all day or YouTube or read a book. I don't think that's always like the healthiest for me. I think it's good to get your heart rate going and get some blood moving and stuff, and get out of your own head. Some rest days are full rest days and others are maybe a little bit more active, whether I go to the crag and watch some friends or go to the gym and do some stretching or, go for a hike. I'll go play basketball every once in a while. Stuff like that.
Yeah, cool. I like that. And what about goals for the year? I mean, you came off of this mega year in 2021. You climbed a ton of 514s. What's in your sights now?
I think that I did a lot of hard routes in 2021. I think that trying to push the level a bit more, chasing some more difficult routes would be really exciting. The next few years, like climbing 515 is really important to me. I'm pretty vocal, with my friends or in podcasts about, my want to reach that level. So, I'm just trying to take the kind of what in my mind is the necessary steps to get to there. For me, that means like some harder routes, routes like Bone Tomahawk or Necessary Evil or Arrested Development. These are all like real hard 14 plus routes in the Utah, Vegas areas. And not being scared to try some more of those 14Cs, 14Ds, and even climbing on, 515 level routes. Maybe listening to my own advice a little bit is the goal this year.
All right, Dru, let's dive into nutrition now. And is there an area there where you've struggled?
Oh boy. I have struggled a lot with nutrition. I think kind of growing up in a household, we didn't eat like the best foods growing up, it was like a lot of cereal and sandwiches and, just not the cleanest of foods, not really knowing, learning how to cook or things like that for a long time. And then like loving sugar, just like straight up addicted. It's such a bad drug.
Oh, it's such a good drug too,
It's such a good drug. Yeah.
Yeah, that just sounds like, a typical kind of American upbringing for the most part. You eat what's around, cereals and sandwiches and that kind of thing, and you love sugar.
Totally. But that, I think, carried on when I started like living in a car. I tended to lean towards things like convenience foods, fast food, or just quick eatings kind of thing, easy. Sure. And I definitely have, I've definitely like cleaned up and just thought about food a little bit differently and trying to fuel really well. My really good friend Dylan talks about it as fueling the beast, so like making sure you're getting all the right things to prepare yourself for all that hard training and all this hardness that we put ourselves through.
All right, so then what does that look like? How do you fuel your beast, like when you're getting ready to go out and do some super hard climbing?
Well, I ate a muffin and a oat milk latte this morning, so I'm really killing it. Or, take everything I say with a grain of salt or a scoop of caramel. I don't know. I'm just trying to I'm trying to clean up. It's like a lot of fruits and vegetables. I think bananas and apples are such a staple for me. Carrots for power. A lot more salads. And recently I've been taking a little bit more inventory of like how much protein I'm getting. I think that can be an important part of recovery.
How much protein are you getting? Like, do you have a target?
I don't know. I feel like they say like 80% or whatever of your body weight, which, if I'm shooting for, 80 to 100 grams or something like that. I do a lot of eggs, or sometimes I eat meat, sometimes I don't. I'm kind of like playing with the idea of doing vegetarian kind of stuff.
And every once in a while, a slice of cheese and pepperoni pizza up at Potosi.
Oh yeah, my friend Rachel brought that. She hiked. You hiked up there. It's a big walk.
That's a legit approach.
Yeah, she carried 2 huge slices of pizza up for me and her husband Eddie. And I smashed my face with it.
That's a good friend.
It's an amazing friend. Yeah, she's great.
And then what about for sugar? Do you give yourself some sugar every once in a while?
Yeah. I just allow myself to do it here and there when I want to. Sometimes I get, a chocolate frosty when I send. or when I don't send. It's like it's either because I'm happy or because it's a sad frosty or a happy frosty. Um, and I don't do that very regularly, but just trying to just be thoughtful of it, but not also like live by restrictions.
It's important to have the happy and the sad frosty every once in a while. I'm a huge proponent of it.
Yeah, it's all gonna work out.
I'll be at the Red tomorrow. I'll be crushing some Ale 8 ones, at
Dude,
the end of the day with a slice of pizza.
Don't make me hate you by hearing that. Yeah, that would be a quick way to make me mad. Just send me a photo of some Miguel's pizza. That would be a bummer.
All right, Drew, let's talk about this concept now of technique and tactics. And I'd kind of like to look at it through this lens of projecting versus going for a flash or an on-site, and any areas where you've struggled in that.
Yeah, it's really important for climbers to have a project and, to spend some time trying something and multiple days on something and, learn what that process looks like and how to make different links and how to pick apart something that's difficult for them. You see so many people who's like their hardest red point is their hardest flash. And you're like, wow, you could, if you spent 5 tries on something, you could do way harder. Some of that is like self-belief and self-talk and just believing in yourself a bit, which is something that I struggle with in hard routes. Some of that like doubt can creep in if you've been trying something for a lot of days. Hard projects can be quite tiring on your mental.
Yeah, and you've had some pretty long projects, right?
I would say in the past, man, I'm like the climber that took forever on everything. I had like these really big projects. Southern Smoke, there's an article in Climbing Magazine a couple of years ago about, a bunch of people who had climbed Southern Smoke, and all these people were like, oh, second try, fifth try, less than 10. And then it was like 75 plus for me, 50 days. I was like of that beat your head against the wall climber, who just it didn't matter how many tries. It was just like I was there to do that route. But I started climbing more flash and on-site this past year in 2021, and I found one. It was really, it was hard for me to like enjoy at first because I just wanted to take and learn the moves. But then I started having some more fun with it. That kind of grand adventure of like the unknown.
Yeah, it's not something that I would typically tend towards either. I like to take my time feeling out a route, maybe bolt to bolt and really learn the sequences and then give it some goes. So I think I can empathize with you on that. But let's talk about the benefits now of trying to work that flash muscle a little bit more.
I felt like immediately it was so beneficial for my projecting. I felt like I tried hard even when I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know if I had the hold right or wrong. Whereas when you're projecting, you know all of the subtleties so well that it's so easy to take yourself out of the game. You miss a hold, you do it wrong, you get to the rest a little tired, more so than you did last time, and those mind games can play. So some of that flashing and on-sighting just really allowed me to climb intuitively, to make quick decisions, to try even when I was tired, to just kind of give a lot more effort in a different way. And I think that translated to the projects that I was doing.
Yeah, I like that perspective. Thank you for sharing that. Flashing in order to get better at red pointing. That's a really cool concept. And hell, you just came off of such an incredible year. You did 21 514s in 2021. So did that concept help you? Was working flashing also helping you to send that insanely high number of 514s?
Yeah, for sure. Because a few years ago, it would have taken me 1 year to climb, 1 514. I think progress isn't always measured by, the next grade or how hard you're sending, but it can also be, how quickly are you climbing, a few grades below you. I love a 5th try send, maybe try it two times, try it the next day, try it 2 times, and then come back and do it on that 5th try. I really wanted to be able to climb harder and harder routes around that try level. And I started doing some more of those. And I mean, moving here to St. George, it just created the possibility and the opportunity to have a million of those routes to climb on and try.
Yeah, so let's apply that to weekend warriors like myself who don't get to climb all the time. How do you strike that balance, or how would you recommend myself or others would strike the balance between, I guess, like quick sends of maybe some sub-maximal type grades versus pushing the top end and going for that new higher grade?
For people who are maybe a weekend warrior, I might recommend to them to the first day try a hard route, try a project and be consistent about that. And then the following day, go to a new crag or go climb, go do some flashes on sites or do some things that would take a few tries. Some of my friends at the gym recently, are trying to break into some new grades, and I recommended to them to boulder problems. And I recommended them to go and try that boulder problem 3 different days, whether that's 15 minutes or 2 hours of them trying it. Just go and try it for 3 days and invest just a little bit of time into it without any expectation. And after the 3rd day, if you decide that this is something you want to continue trying, then you carry on. And if it's not, then, well, at least you put some valuable time into that next grade to just know what that's going to look like. I think that's really helpful. It's easy to check out something of the next level and it be intimidating or scary. And, we get on it and it feels impossible. It feels so hard and we just write it off immediately. So kind of giving yourself a little grace period of like, I'm just, I'm playing, I'm checking something out. I know it's hard for me, but I'm going to, invest a little bit of energy into it.
All right, Dru, let's get deep now, buddy. Let's dive into mental game, and I'm curious to hear from you where you've struggled in that area.
In my climbing, I think a lot of times self-confidence is something I maybe struggle with, believing in myself a bit, believing I can do things, believing I should try that next level, like we just talked about, like kind of allowing yourself some permission to try the next grades, I think has been somewhat of a challenge for me. Sometimes when I get really close on a route, when you kind of have that breakthrough, I've talked with a lot of people about this actually, is kind of when you can send something, it sometimes just becomes much more difficult because then you create this expectation that maybe that send could happen, maybe it's imminent, or maybe you keep falling, and it's in that space that expectations can grow. And then when you don't meet those expectations, then, frustration can arise.
Yeah, it's so interesting to hear. I've had this privilege of being able to talk to the greatest climbers in the world here this season on the show. And a theme that's starting to come up, or that I'm starting to at least recognize here in the mental game chapter, is that there is a fear of failure or an internal conflict that a lot of you pro climbers can seem to wrestle with, which is not unlike, amateurs, weekend warriors like myself, where I go out and maybe I really want to send the project because I'm running out of time, or I don't have that many goes while the temps are good, or, my buddies have been catching me on this damn project for so long. So is that confidence that you wrestle with and the idea of failing, has that been something that you've always wrestled with, or has that become more acute as you've risen through the ranks here in the climbing world?
Yeah, I mean, always, I think all of my climbing, I've definitely struggled with that. And, in trying to focus that energy to red pointing can be really difficult. There's a route called Solid Gold, which was the 21st 514 that I did last year, which was a big, proud goal. It's a hard route for me. Even though I did it quick, it felt, like a good challenge. And I started falling off the top, and, some of that expectation started to maybe arise where I was like, I know any try could be the try. And I didn't want to allow myself to expect that like today is the day or things like that. So I had this little kind of mantra, this little saying that I'm here to try. I'm here to try. I'm just here to try. I'm not here to send. I'm here to give my best effort. I'm here to try this route, whether it takes me 1 more try or 8 more times. I'm going to eventually climb it, like that's what I am doing with my life, is to try these hard rock climbs. And so I'm eventually going to do it. So what's it matter whether I do it now or do it later? And that kind of mental exercise, or just a little simple mantra, I think has helped me. And like I said, every project has a different process. Every hard route that I do kind of comes with some different mantras, different like little reminders. Just little like kind of things to check in with myself on too.
All right, Drew, let's talk about things that you're passionate about and that bring you purpose outside of rock climbing now. And what is that to you?
Yeah, man. I mean, I do find that climbing can be quite selfish, man. Like my own pursuits, my own chasing my own goals all the time. I mean, I love it and I'm so drawn to it, and it's something I've done for a long time. But finding some space to have a bigger impact on like the world at large, it's like, why are we here? What are we doing? And so I don't know. I struggle with that, and I struggle with that I don't always feel like I'm doing enough. I think that there's so many people who invested in me when I was a kid. This friend of mine, her dad paid for my membership when I was a kid. John Erickson, and the Rick and Liz Weber, who owned Mirror Valley for a long time, gave me a job cutting grass, and they would give me some money for a trip or something. People like really invested. My community rallied around me. I think they saw like the love I had for climbing and the passion that I had, and they really tried to foster that. And so I want to do the same. I want to have an impact on people. I want to invest in people that I see that are excited or have questions or are just trying their best, and I want to be a resource for those people. So I try to keep myself open and available. As an athlete, we do a lot of clinics, and companies ask us to do clinics, and sometimes you see pros just doing it because it's part of their contract. But I really love those things, and you can tell, I believe, because I try really hard at them, and I do a gym to crag clinic, and I do an endurance clinic at a lot of events. And I love doing it. I love being like a very physical part of somebody's climbing journey. Just talking with you about climbing in the Red makes me feel so happy to, like, in some small little way, be a part of your climbing journey is amazing. And to have a very tangible thing feels good to me.
Yeah, I think that really does have a huge impact, man. And I appreciate you sharing that, because I think it's so interesting when people attain a certain level of accomplishment in their field. And honestly, that could be just like any field. But for you and rock climbing specifically, when you have a small interaction with somebody, like a personal interaction with somebody, it can have a totally outsized positive impact on that person, like their relationship with climbing or even beyond. And so, the fact that you've recognized that and you're essentially giving back as a mentor in a way that you have received in the past is really rad. And it sounds like that's something that you just want to keep continuing to do and build on.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I just want, I want to find the balance between, pursuing my own goals and pushing further, and also like making space and time for people and being available. Like I always want to do that. And I want to be approachable, I want to be like an aspirational figure too, I think, maybe, like where people feel comfortable talking to me.
It just speaks to the rock climbing community in general. People help to mentor you, help to give you opportunities, help to give you advice, and now you're in a position where you can, pay that forward.
Totally. And Jonathan, put that in my mind early on too. He did the nomad life, and he always had friends who would let him stay on his couch. And then he talked about having this opportunity that he had a house, and now he had a guest room. It's this way of giving back to the universe. And I
love it.
Yeah, I don't know. I try to do that with mentorship and things like that.
Yeah, it's great to hear about Segrist. And, from my own perspective, even just being out in Vegas and having that chance to climb with Alex Honnold and Jordan Cannon, when I met up with them, it was over at Alex's house, and he had 2 or maybe 3 climbers crashing there at the time, like using his driveway for their vans or whatever. And so, it's cool. It's cool that the community just continues to give back even at like the highest levels. So let's get specific here, because I'd love to hear, how you've worked with people, or how, kind of how you've had that mentor role.
Yeah. A bunch of years ago, some mutual friends reached out about a family with a young man named Jason Wills, who was looking to climb in the Red. He's really accomplished, competition climber, and wanted to, climb outside a bit. And we ended up, working together. He came out to the Red with his whole family. And
how old was he?
11 or 12 on his first trip.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
just like a young crusher.
hilarious, and he was just making his way through all these hard routes. I think on his first trip, he might have climbed Snooker or Tuna Town, and we had such a good time together, and he climbed really well and had a lot of fun and just covered a lot of bases together, from like cleaning routes to going on little adventures. I felt like we were a big part of each other's lives. We did a bunch of subsequent trips after that. And, I took him, we went to nationals, and we did different trips to Chattanooga, and mostly a lot of trips in the Red. He became like my little brother, just like somebody I loved more than I could ever express.
Wow.
And he passed away in a car wreck this past year. And yeah.
Man, I'm sorry.
God, thank you. It's something I struggle with every day. He was 17, absolutely tragic. Such a good kid. He struggled with his own things, with mental health and forms of addiction that I think that a lot of young people deal with, while they're trying to figure out their identity and who they are and what they want to do. And it's challenging. It's really, really challenging. And we meant a lot to each other. So it's important for me to talk about him. It's important for me to say his name. It's important for me to remember him.
Yeah, God, man, it's so hard. I'm so sorry. Were you aware of some of those struggles that he was going through?
Yeah. When I was 15, I went, I got help for, I did this partial hospitalization program for some mental health issues of my own. I was medicated for things like panic attacks and anxiety and depression. And he was dealing with those at 15. And so I think being able to, have somebody to talk about those kinds of things with, to have fun with, to go on trips with. I mean, we talked a lot about, the things that he was experiencing, and I could offer some level of personal experience. I just think that experience creates empathy. My experiences as a kid created just an ability to talk to him about those kinds of things, at least, or to see him or to hear him. But it was really important for me to show up for him, not just as a climber and not just as a climbing coach, not just in the Red, but in all of the walks of his life. And that's where mentorship to me just is so much beyond hip mobility and red pointing tactics. It's like having having this friend that means so much to me, and being a resource in Jason's life, not just as a climber. And I know he knew that. I know he knew that I loved him, whether he climbed or didn't climb. That he was more than just a climber to me. That his whole identity wasn't climbing, and neither is mine, and neither is yours. And we are so much more than the things that we do.
Yeah, we are. And it's just great to have that reminder, because sometimes I don't know, it's easy just to get lost in like the thing that is occupying our life in the moment. So then what happened as he got older, as you guys were working together? And were you working with an organization together as well?
He got help. He worked with this group called Insight, that rehabilitation program and addiction. And he worked with a lot of kids his own age. He got healthy. He was making so much progress. He was just in such a good place. And he then was showing up for all of these people who were experiencing these things that were so similar to him, And he was there for them. And he would drive hours out of his way to sit with somebody going through a hard time. And I didn't know about all of those stories. And I learned from his mom later on, and his family, and heard these stories. And I felt just like this overwhelming proudness of him for having an impact on people. Yeah, I miss him a whole lot.
Yeah, buddy. That's so beautiful. Thank you for, sorry, it's making me a little emotional here as well.
It's just so fresh. It happened in August, and it's just important for me to be able to talk about and share. and yeah, let his legacy carry on, you know?
Obviously, you had this massive impact on his life, and then he was able to have a massive impact on so many other people's lives. What was his impact on your life?
Oh boy, what a great question, Ryan. Jason's impact on me, I mean, you know, to be a part of his life, to be welcomed into his family, to have a relationship with his family, is just important, transcending climbing. I think that grief is such an interesting thing. So it's just this weight that you carry, that is, I'm learning how beautiful that raw emotion is, you know, to like love someone so much that you feel so much pain when they're gone is intense. It's so hard to even express.
Yeah, buddy. Well, thank you for expressing it, you know, for opening up. But this is a little bit deeper, I think, than we would typically go on this show. But I'm so glad that we are, and that you've felt comfortable opening up and sharing this, because it doesn't get more deep than grief. It doesn't get more real than that, but it comes from a place of love. And you've just got such a huge heart, Dru. I'm so grateful that you've shared that with us.
Yeah, of course, man. And I would love to add, you know, the struggle transcends climbing and all of our personal lives, and we're all going through something. And I think it's important to think about somebody might be having a tough day, and just trying to be a good person and give people some patience and some understanding.
Well, hell yes to that, man. Yeah, thank you, Dru. Thanks for just bringing the goods, man. I mean, you know, your career is so incredibly inspiring. You try so hard. You love climbing. You love climbers. You love the community. You give back. And then to open up like you have here, just so grateful for you, man. I am a huge Dru Mack fan, and I just cannot wait to keep in touch, buddy. Thank you so much for being on the show here.
Yeah, dude, I really appreciate the opportunity. I think it's cool to interact with people in this real tangible way, and talk about this weird thing that human experience is, and how this weird thing that climbing is, and how exciting and fun, amazing it is. It means the world to me.
And that wraps up our chat with the realest dude around, Dru Mack. What'd y'all think of it? Let us know. You can find us on Instagram at DruMack5, at Ryan Devlin Outside, and at The Struggle Climbing Show. Look, my big takeaways from our chat is that it can be really helpful to focus on flashing and on-sighting routes. Both. It can be helpful for both. And yes, it'll help us to push our top end grade harder, but perhaps more importantly, it'll give us tools to become better and faster climbers just all around. So I'm going to put a lot of focus on flash attempts this season, and I also love Dru's perspective on trying hard. Even just showing up at the crag with his mantra, I'm not here to send, I'm here to try. I'm not here to send, I'm here to try. I love that. And lastly, Dru's perspective on giving back, mental struggles, addiction, and mentorship. It's just all really inspiring. From short interactions to deep relationships, we can all show up for one another in ways that can have a profound impact, and that's awesome. Shout out to PhysiVantage for being the official climbing nutrition sponsor of The Struggle. If y'all want to level up your training and performance, check it out. Shake some Endurex into your bottle and send that long, pumpy proj, or just be able to train harder for longer. It is the best. PhysiVantage is now available in Europe on the Epic TV online shop, and in the US at select gyms, and of course, at PhysiVantage.com. Hit that link in your show notes or use code STRUGGLE15 for 15% off at checkout. Well, that about clips the anchors on this episode. Now, Dru and I had a Red River Gorge love fest in this interview, and so I'm going to plan a little bonus episode coming up here soon where I will fill you in on how my season's been going at the Red, and I'll see if I can wrap Dru in for some commentary. Nobody knows the Red like that guy. Now, if you'd like to support the show and the climbers who make it, I would be so darn grateful, and it's easy to do. Swing by patreon.com/thestruggleclimbing-show and become a patron. I got 2 jobs, 2 kids, and I'm working on this thing at all sorts of weird hours, you guys. I need caffeine. So for the price of a fancy cup of coffee each month, you're gonna help keep me awake, and you'll also help us to bring you more stories from inspiring guests like Dru. Plus, you'll score yourself a super rad aluminum travel mug /can koozie exclusivity that is only available to guests of the show and the cool patrons like yourself who support it. So, if you like these interviews, please consider backing all of the work that goes into them. Thank you. I love you. Now, another way you can support is by spreading the word. So just rate and review the show wherever you listen, Apple, Spotify, wherever, and then grab a picture of that, post it on Instagram, and tag @TheStruggleClimbingShow, and I will send you some stickers. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Slap them on your Nalgene, your stick clip, your van, or your forehead so that everybody knows that you love the struggle and the struggle loves you. All right, let's climb hard and do good things in the world.